Hello everyone and welcome to this meeting on women, Palestinian women against genocide, women that are working to maintain life under destruction. And in the name of the IPA, I'd like to present to you this meeting to express support to the Palestinian people against the genocide perpetrated by the occupation forces against Palestinians ever since 75 years ago. Zionists came to Palestine as refugees, but they had another goal to use colonialism and to use all methods of massacres, killing, and oppression to take over the load. Massacres all over the cities. They used all voices, different sources, imprisonment, forced imprisonment, displacement, killing women and children, and the Palestinian people did everything they could in order to put an end and to resist this colonialism and Arab countries were only silenced against this, and for many years the world did not speak against all these practices, all this oppression, and the whole world today is doing the same thing. However, this people that fights and that resists and will never we will never let go of their rights. They have long they are deeply rooted in their countries. And we'll start with this meeting with the Palestinian national anthem. Wahid, is the national anthem ready? Just a second, please. 2 minutes. Waiting for the national anthem. I will start by a message from Gaza. Our women who are heroes, who actually faced all the different and the most difficult types of oppression. This is a letter from our comrade Haneen from Gaza. I will read her letter. I will start to read her letter, waiting for her. Please ask her to speak slower. Greetings from all over the world for every free person who is supporting our just cause. For starters, I would like to express a call for all the martyrs. Now, this is my testimony as a woman from who witnessed 49 days of killing or displacement committed by genocide committed by Israel against our people, and now with that with only a few days of a pause, as we call it, just a few days to check on each other, to bury our dead, who to check over on the people who died, the people who lost members, the children who were scattered in pieces and torn apart by this war that waged by oppression and that killed more than 4,000 children and thousands of women during the displacement from home, the forced displacement from my home to the north and the north to the south, where I saw women who were also displaced and who were killed in the massacres that forced people and families to displace through what I call the safe corridors, but was not safe. Women who carried their babies and children in their hands, just a bottle of water to and carrying backpacks with just a few clothes and the dates to allow them go through this horrible, frightening corridor over the Salahuddin Street on a frightful 9 kilometers that were filled with horrors. I have met a friend over the way, and we hug each other and cried. And oh, it feels as if we have lived the Nakba of 1948. My friend has looked more like an old woman. From the fatigue, from walking, from being tired, and after giving her a few some water, she cried again and she told me, "Oh, Hanin, if you could only see what I saw, the bodies, the corpses on the way." She was crying bitterly, and in these words, for more than half an hour, she kept repeating that I felt I felt deep sorrow and grief for my people because everything was destroyed by this merciless war, crazy war. I looked around the streets. Looking for just bread for bread for us and for everyone looked tired, looked sad, looked horrified after hours of walking through what is they call the safe corridor. Over the way, I saw a woman looking, running. And running towards somebody who carries a few pieces of bread. And after walking for hours, I just called, "Could you please give me a piece of bread?" And I could not just bear the sight, and I cried my eyes out for this feeling of not being able to do anything, for of being subject to this subject oppression. And we heard the news of the martyrdom of the wife of my brother and her sons and daughters and all of her families and aunties, and countless people that were just buried without having the time to absorb the situation, to say goodbye to them. All of this while being under complete siege, being denied water or electricity or food or medicine or anything. My witness statement is not ended because. And on the 21st of November, I was so close to death. God mercy helped me to survive, and I was hearing the I uh, I was under the rubble and ran to the door, asking for help from everyone. It was dark. There was no single source of water. I was barefoot and blood running from my feet. And I don't know how I called for help. We made it. We barely made it, and it was a horrifying night. And the morning we went back and to we find blood all over the place, parts, body parts scattered all over the house. This is the oppression of colonialism. This is colonialism that kills everyone, disregarding for they being male or female or young or elderly. For 4 days, I was not able to eat anything. I was barely able to breathe. And with the break of dawn, all women here started their difficult days trying to look for food for their children. I have seen many women that made trying to make ovens out of nothing, out of clay, just to make food, the basics for their children. Women trying to find milk for their children. I believe that the war will end, and this colonialism will end. We believe in a better future. We will plant again the trees. We will rebuild our countries. This is our country. We are its children, and we are ready to sacrifice everything for our country, for our prisoners. This is Gaza that will not surrender despite all the destruction. We are here and we will stay here. Is the national anthem ready, Wahid? Thank you. We will start, and we have a recommendation because we have interpretation. It's very important that we speak slowly. I know that I started the introduction very fast, but now we'll try to speak slower for the interpreters to follow through. Now we'll start with the first section. What after the aggression against Gaza? And then we'll start with Mariam Adus, the feminist activist who who left to who traveled to Egypt when she was through with, three with her family. She saw her mother when she was part of the popular resistance, and then she went back to Gaza as she was 14. She wrote a letter to Ahmed Ashqidi, who was the founder of a Tahrir liberation organization, and she wanted to open the training centers for women. And also, she quoted saying that I will not, I will be restricted. I have tomorrow, I have a future, and tomorrow I will to fight back. And this is what she did. She was a revolutionary. She revolted against the traditions that limited the role of women in society. She lived in different countries, and she came back as an international activist human rights and especially women rights, and she established the Feminist Studies Center in Gaza. However, of course, the French authorities deported her to Egypt in 2023 under the claim that her presence in France is a threat to public order. Welcome, and you have the floor, ma'am. Hello, everyone. And thank you for this very important meeting at this very important time. Allow me to start by extending our respect to the martyrs and wishing our good wishes for the injured and for our country. Should I go on? Also, I would like to greet all the countries, all the people that are speaking out for our just cause, the Palestinians who have been struggling for 75 years for freedom and liberation and for the rights of men and women in Palestine. I'm not sure if you can hear me or not. Yes, we can hear you clearly. Now, as to the topic that I'd like to address, I would like to say that the cause of Palestinian, the cause of men and women, and we cannot talk about women outside of this context. Women play an essential role in the national Palestinian movement, and the colonizer have always started to actually to stop the movement by arresting women. They have arrested me 15 years ago, and I thank them for arresting me because I would hope that all the children of Palestine would be arrested so they could see who their enemy really is. And I'm happy also for the French and for what they did because it was their stupidity that actually turned the public opinion in France with for the Palestinian cause. Palestinian women ever since 1917 up until today. They were always played as an essential role in the liberation movement, not just as the mother of martyrs. They are martyrs themselves. They are imprisoners. They get imprisoned. They are injured. Women. They all women have played an essential role in all the efforts to free Palestine, and women actually. Even though society would not be able to become a democratic society without the effective participation of women, and this is why Palestinian women were a huge threat for the Zionist settlers, whether on the land, in sea, and in the air. Women prepared IEDs. Women became martyrs. Layla Khaled, who flew in Palestine, who said to the oppressors, "This is my land," and Dalal al-Mughrabi, who led the biggest attack in the colonized land and who was martyred along with all his group. And who were only two witnesses that remained alive, and they were that saw the Zionism. So we see that women in Palestine, of course, face very difficult conditions, and they resist so many things at the same time. They resist the colonizers, and they also have a cultural struggle, because we know that women are marginalized also, and and they have been struggling for that, for their rights, and also they were struggling against discrimination in our society. So women are subject to to complex oppression. Palestinian women has not just started the enduring violence. For 75 years, Palestinian women were struggling against violence, all types of violence. They struggled against colonialism. They struggled against sexual violence, domestic violence, cultural, so all types. And but the colonialism was the main struggle for Palestinian women, and we have always said that there is no freedom for women, Palestinian women, without freedom for Palestine, because freedom of our country comes before everything, and we don't have a democracy, we won't have development, we have don't have freedom without the participation of women in all forms of struggle. Also, what Palestinian women have been and are enduring now is a very, very difficult situation. And I'd like to tell you that I'll tell you the situation in colonized land, and the colonizers focused on this issue, and they all spoke openly, and they always say that they target women because that they bear revolutionaries, and they teach them to become revolutionaries, and the colonialists say openly without any shame that they have no cons of consciousness killing children and babies and women because they are the future resistors. And I wrote actually a poem when I was arrested, and I said, "Do you know, my comrade, that I never was a child? I've never enjoyed my childhood. I spent my childhood between prisons and expelled from my country in cold, in difficult situations. My childhood was marked by killing, targeting children. Uh, so my colleague, but my comrade, I'm no longer a child, and they cannot kill us now. We don't have children because children, they are born in a catastrophe. Their mothers, their fathers, their neighbors, their land, their home was destroyed. The siege, all of this combined actually denies the children their childhood. It's because they are under a fascist opponent, and this is what, and now what we're witnessing is a genocide that targets mainly women and children. And the Palestinians have only three choices. Either they, and the colonialists, well, that's what they say. You have only three choices. You die, you get displaced, or you live as a slave. So, and that is their aim, because they want an empty Palestine. They wanted to, and the Palestine is only just the gate, the starting point from which they want to expand to all over the Arab world. And we know that they are the sponsors of imperialism, sponsored by the United States. So this is why I believe that Gaza is protecting all the Arab world, and they have shown us incredible strength, resilience, and courage. Women from they come out under the rubble, injured and tired. But again, they light fires and they cook bread for their children and for everyone else, and to keep them going. And this is why we say that it's important that we change our discourse. All the international organizations that lied. They did nothing to because they find at the end of the day they go stand for nothing. Like their human rights, women rights, all children rights. They unfortunately they it seems that they don't look at us as human beings, and it's something that they said openly. but we say that we have our rights. We have the right to live on our land. This is our land. This is the land of our ancestors. And I'd like to tell you now that all the people in the of the world now have started to see the reality, and this is why I'd like to say thank you, Gaza, because now we see everyone for who they really are. I'd like to thank women of Palestine, and Gaza will always be in our hearts. Palestinian women carry the dead bodies of their children and say, God bless the resistance. We will always support the resistance. Palestinian women are fighters, are martyrs, and they teach their children to be resilient, to be strong, and never to let go of their land, of their homes. Also, we have the prisoners, the women prisoners, very important for, and we saw lately how horrible, what the horrible conditions that they undergo in prisons, denying them the simplest rights, being subject to aggression, beating them, being denied medication, prisoners in general suffer a great deal in Israeli prisons. And this is why Palestinian women, its presence, its support is very important. So what should we do now? All the people, the free people in the world now should to advocate for Palestinian women. We talked about the 16-day event, we talked about CEDAW, but we are the only country that is colonized, and we have our right. All the laws stipulate that we do have the right to struggle in all forms to obtain our freedom, including the armed resistance. There's democracy is a big lie. I tried. I lived it. France, as they call it, is the country of light. At the end of the day, we know what they did to Algeria, and they show their true colors. Because they tried to fool us. But Gaza and this aggression, I believe, dropped all the masks, and we started to see them, we saw them for what they are. And this was the start of liberation. And this is why it's our duty as women not to take ourselves lightly. Women all over the world should stand with Palestinian women, because Palestinian women is standing for a just cause and for her land. And this is why any achievement for women is also achievement for all women around the world, and for enhancing our resilience as the women. And the efforts that Palestinian women is making is it's for all women around the world, especially that we know that for Israel is a threat to all free countries, and we have seen men. And we have seen that there are many oppressed countries in the world that also would want to struggle for freedom. There are many other people under this. Before now, everyone is talking to free Palestine. Before, they used to call everyone an extremist for calling for freedom for Palestine. But now everyone sees for the truth. Because everyone sees the bodies and the corpses of women and children, and so Gaza is the force that standing against the projects of settlements, and uh, and we see that the West Bank also is trying to resist, and we are all a united front. And the Palestinians also in the different diaspora also have an important role to play. We are all together, and we believe in our right to liberate ourselves from this colonizer and from this regime. And all the free people in the world are with us. And we see that public opinion around the world now supports Palestine, because they discovered the lies of this apartheid, this regime. And women played an important role in this, not just by what they feel, but also by their work. The children talk to me. I talk to women. I talk to workers. I talk to women, and and they give me strength. They there in Gaza, they give me strength because we know that the situation is horrible in Gaza, but also for us, the people outside of Gaza, we die every second of have lost countless members of our families, and we know that complete families were erased from the civil registry because they were massacred in entirety. But we'll stay strong, we'll stay resilient, and women play an essential role in supporting the revolution, in the liberation, and to the soft power is women have an important soft power because women they educate their children, they send them to protests, they sit on the rubble of their homes and bake bread to share it with everyone there. Solidarity in Gaza is an essential um, feature, but we see shops that are destroyed. People are hungry, but they do not go into those shops and they don't take anything. They wait for the owner of the shop for them for to help them. People stand together. They have solidarity. But if you, I believe everyone knows what the colonizer did, harvesting organs of martyrs, harvesting their skin. Is there anything more inhuman? And still they are supported by the US and by UK, who just decided now to send aircrafts in order to for surveillance purposes to help Israel. Look at Germany, look at France, where they are stopping everyone from speaking for Palestinians under the pretext of anti-Semitism, where they know that it's not anti-Semitism. It's important to speak the truth, and the truth is that Palestinian women and Palestinian children and Palestinian youth will be the main key and the main force to free not only Gaza but Palestine and all the Arab countries and the world, because the whole world is under the US agenda, and for 75 years they fooled the whole world, but now see that people see the truth, but they see that we paid this price dearly. The price of freedom is very high, expensive, but I hope that these few days will be essential for our people and for Gaza, and it's very important to support them in as every possible way. Women in the world are the strength, and they can impact the international opinion, and this is the cause of every free just person, and this is why it is our common cause to stop against the US imperialism, American imperialism, and this is why it's important to work together as a united front, all women around the world, at work again to fight against imperialism represented whether by the US or its allies or Zionism, because all the people around the world are suffering from this lie, the lie of democracy as they see it and as they want to impose it all over the world. I I used to go to Gaza, and it was always I was studying that I don't know how do we live, no electricity, no medicine, no water, but still we create life and we create laughter, and we say that this land is worth living for. I, when they denied us fuel, people in Gaza were able to operate their cars using the oil of falafel, and we shared each other everything we've had, and we still survive. All we want is freedom. We're ready to go hungry, but we are not beggars. We don't want to support. Palestinian women are creative, just as Palestinian men. What we want is not food or support, but we want our freedom. And this is why we will keep creating life. We will always resist against this fascist oppressor, against genocide. Palestinian women lose one child and keep bearing children to keep the fight. And I always say that even if there are only one Palestinian woman remains alive, she will continue the struggle. Palestine is ours, whether you like it or not. From the river to the sea, Palestine is ours, whether you like it or not. And I'd like to say to tell Trump that if you really like, if you feel sorry for Zionists, give them Washington. And for the president and the leaders of UK, if you really feel sorry for them, give them your land. This world does not respect the weak, does not believe in rights. It only responds to strength, and we will fight for our cause, and we will for our, and our people will have freedom, will have hope despite all the double standards and the injustice, but their lies are uncovered. The people see them for they are see them for see their lies, and I hope that the future will be ours. We will have freedom, and women Palestinian will be always our source of pride, and I'm sure that Palestinian women will never be forgotten, and we will always hail their efforts and they will, who Palestinian who bent the colonizers, those who try to imprison them, to kill them, and to take their rights. This is our land. It always remain our land. We don't have our own nationalities. We're not Indian or Brazilian, or we don't get a second nationalities. We're Palestinian. We'll die and live Palestinians. This is the only land we have. We freedom for our prisoners. Blessings to our martyrs. Let's unite, women around the world. Let's unite ourselves against imperialism, because women are able to do anything, and this is something that I believe. Women are strong. If women are strong, society is strong. If women are strong, we'll have victory. The revolution will have victory. Thank you all very much.
Women of the world, unite. We have a very important responsibility to protect this world and support these women. From under the ashes, we create life. Resistance will continue. Now we will give the floor to Comrade Wala from the Women Committee Union in Palestine. She's from Gaza. Wahid, is the recording ready? Wala, Comrade Wala. The recording of Comrade Wala. It is not ready. Can I broadcast it directly? Wahid, can I broadcast it directly from my computer? Yes. Let's try and see. Maybe we can give the floor to another comrade and then we will return. I give the floor to another comrade from the West Bank. The West Bank, that it is never stopping the resistance and militancy. It's a revolution on a daily basis. The wounded Gaza is calling upon the West Bank that it is subject to racism, and mercy has not been bestowed on the West Bank because women have been taken as captives in the prisons of the occupying forces. But women in the West Bank have not faltered. They continued resisting. They confronted the invasions against Al-Aqsa. Comrade Afef Ghatasha, member of the political office in the People's Palestinian People's Party and member of the Working Women Committee and member of the National Palestinian Council. She is a women's activist and especially in violence against women. She is a member of the regional secretariat of the IPA, and she has been, since her youth, engaged in the militancy and struggles in Palestine. She is a refugee from Beit Jabrin since 1948. She was brought up in Al Fawar camp in Al Khalil, but she's now living in Ramallah. She will be giving us her overview on the Israeli policies in the West Bank. You have the floor, Comrade Afif. Thank you, Comrade Yana. Thank you, all comrades. Allow me first to extend my thanks to the regional women team in the IPA for preparing this seminar and for all our comrades and in the background and behind the scenes, Wahid and the other comrades. I appreciate your efforts. Allow me first to say and to join what my comrade Mariam said. Palestine is a united land, but was divided by the enemies, the Gaza Strip, Al-Quds, West Bank, and the Palestinian diaspora. But we always say Palestine is united, and the Palestinian people are united. This genocide, this American imperialist war against Palestine, this war headed by the US and Europe these imperialist forces from Europe and the US gave the green light to the Israeli enemy to do whatever they want, to kill as they wish. But we say to them this is our land. We will not go anywhere else. This is where we were brought up. We will stay here. We will defend our land until our dying breath. We will not go anywhere. We will not leave our beloved nation and homeland. Allow me first to give you a picture on the West, on what is happening, or an overview on West Bank. This small stretch of land that extends on 5,260 square kilometers and constitute 12% of the historical surface area of Palestine. Its inhabitants account for 3.5 million. The West Bank has been divided into cantons by the occupying forces and controlling the joined roads. When we say joined roads, they are joined between us and the settlers and the occupation army. 60% of the surface area of the West Bank that have been called in the Oslo Agreement as Area C is subject directly to occupation, in spite of the fact that all West Bank is subject to occupation, because the occupation forces can enter into any area of the West Bank and do whatever they want, in spite of the fact that these territories controlled by the Palestinian Authority. The doomed Oslo Agreement stipulated that Area C of the West Bank is directly controlled by the occupying forces, and they have established on it more than 600 settlements. These are inhabited by more than 750,000 settlers who are extremists and have extremist ideologies, and they are armed. These are the settlers that they call civilians. They have been provided with weapons in the past, but there are calls now to intensify the armament that these settlers have. This is but an overview or a description of the West Bank. Since October 7, the occupation forces are exercising the most atrocious fascism through the orders of Netanyahu, Ben Gvir, and Gantz. They have put the West Bank in a situation like a pressure cooker, and they are exercising pressure over it until it is on the brink of explosion. Since the first days of the attacks and atrocities against the Gaza Strip, the occupying military forces have closed the roads between the different areas of the West Bank and allowed settlers to move freely in the West Bank. A heavy deployment of military forces have been implemented in the different parts of West Bank. Every camp and every city now are isolated, and the settlers are using the roads and as they wish, supported by the army and supported by the armed civilians. On the doors of the camps, there are iron doors from forever. These are opened and closed by the orders of the occupation. Since October 7, the occupation has established barricades on the doors of the villages and roads in order to limit the movement of people. If you want to move in the West Bank, you need to move only for necessity, and you will encounter lots of challenges in your movement. Also, the extremist settlers have been provided with green light by the extremist voices in the Netanyahu government to attack Palestinians. These criminal settlers killed around 7 Palestinians since October 7. These are farmers. Some of them are on their lands where collecting olives because it is the olive season, and some of them have been killed on the streets. This is what the settlers, extremist settlers, did against the 7 Palestinians, and especially in Nablus area. They threatened the different Palestinian communities in the Area C, and they attacked its inhabitants. And they evicted around 16 neighborhoods in Masafer Yatta area in Al Khalil. And they have displaced around 1,000 families. Most of these families are made up of women and children. Here we say that the practices of the occupation is not limited to targeting women. Yes, women are paying a high price or double price for these atrocities, but this violence and this brutal terror of the occupation is targeting everyone. Women are at the heart of this struggle, and they are paying a double price, but all of the Palestinian people are paying the price of these atrocities and terror. Most of the people who moved out of those neighborhoods are women and children. They moved from their residences to places they think that they are safe. There is no safe place in the West Bank or in Jerusalem, neither for Palestinians nor for Arabs. They became like nomads, moving from one place to another on the hope that that place provides them with security. Also, since October 7, there are around 200,000 workers who are working in the occupied Palestinian territories of 48, but they were fired. They do not have job opportunities or the ability to access employment opportunities in the West Bank, which are none, by the way, but they are compelled to go into the occupied Palestinian territories of 48 in order to work. And the Palestinian economy depends on them, but they have been fired without any prior notice and without any explanation. And the fascist, racist occupation is threatening to bring workers from India and from other Asian countries to fill that gap. The Israeli occupation forces have raided many areas in the West Bank that are controlled by the so-called Palestinian Authority. In the night, they conducted or carried out these raids at night. At any moment they see fit, whether the people are sleeping or they are in an unethical situation, or in their sleep, and so on and so forth, but they do not respect any of that. Around 4,000 captives between men and women have been arrested by the occupation forces, in spite of the fact that some captives have been released within the agreement between the resistance and the Israeli occupation forces, but they have arrested and held captive 4,000. That is more than 30-fold of those released. With this fascist and racist mindset, the Israeli occupation forces have carried out the most vicious, horrible attacks against the captives in Israeli prisons. They have been tortured. They have been deprived from health care. They have been deprived from any good food and water. Some humiliating practices have been levied against the captives. They were forced to salute the Israeli flag and to kiss the Israeli flag. And whomever abstains from that is beaten ferociously. In addition to this, there are daily pursuits and raids against Palestinians, and on a daily basis, martyrs fall in the West Bank. What is happening in the West Bank is similar to a silent war. If we look at Gaza and the atrocities and genocide and hideous crimes committed against the people, the Palestinians in Gaza, they talk about the Holocaust, but what is happening in Gaza is more than the Holocaust. It's a daily Holocaust. It's a daily genocide. The level of atrocities in Gaza overshadow what is happening in the West Bank, and what is happening in West Bank can be described as a silent war. Since October 7 until this day, there are 240 martyrs who fell in the West Bank. There are massacres that are committed. Sometimes 6 to 7 martyrs are killed at the same time. For the first time, the occupation bombards the West Bank and orders airstrikes against the West Bank in a camp where houses are very close together, and you can imagine the repercussions of such acts. These unprecedented actions have been coupled by statements and threats from these fascist ministers, and not only from them, but also from members of the Knesset, who are supposed to be politicians. These threats varied from threatening Palestinians with a new Nakba or threats to kill all the Arabs. These are threats and statements and declarations coming up from Knesset members. In addition to this, there are many threats of displacement from the Palestinian West Bank regions. These are distributed by settlers. They are threatening the Palestinians to move out of their regions and areas, or else they will be killed. Israel is deploying all of its efforts in order to displace and move Palestinians out of their lands. This transfer, as Comrade Mariam said, this is the occupation mentality. Palestinians, or Arabs for that matter, should be either in prison or killed or slaves that work for them. These are the three statuses that Palestinians or Arabs have in the mentality of the occupation. This fascist occupation for many years didn't learn their lesson. What is happening in Gaza is the proof that the Palestinian people will resist, will continue its struggle, and we will continue resisting until our dying breath. We will not leave. We will not go anywhere. We will not be refugees again. We will never be refugees again. Either we live in this land or die on it. We will never go out of our land. In front of all of this, and in front of the shortcomings of the Palestinian Authority in dispersing the salaries of employees and impeding the workers, now there is an expected explosion in the West Bank. And this explosion will be in the face of the occupation. In light of the circumstances, in my opinion, and since the first moment, we've said we are united. We are united and barricaded again behind our ideas and our legitimate resistance. By the way, resistance is a legitimate right that has been ensured by all international laws. These are laws that we haven't developed. They have been developed since the First World War, developed by these governments that claim control of the world. We are struggling with force. We have the right. We are the occupied people. We have the right to defend ourselves. The ones who do not have the right to defend themselves are the occupation state, because they are the occupiers. They are the ones who occupied us. We have the right to resistance. Didn't this come into the provisions of the Fourth Geneva Convention? Why, when it comes to Palestine, the international forces adopt a double standard? We have been seeing the American imperialism and the international imperialism was seen as a nice as a calm lamp, but they have actually shown us their true colors. They are now trying to defend their interests in the region through Palestine, through the door of resistance. The imperialist forces are trying to make or to describe this resistance as terrorism, and they're trying to settle their scores on the expense of Palestinians. They are ready to make the Palestinian people pay the highest prices in order to protect their interests in the region. And that's what they are doing now with the Palestinian people. We say this again. They do not know our stubbornness, our values, our convictions, our principles. They do not know the Palestinian people. Palestinians have values, have convictions, because we believe that we are the ones who have the right. These imperialist forces are trying through Palestine to control the region. They need to address or they need to settle all of their scores with Russia and with China through the Palestinian people, through stigmatizing the Palestinian struggle and resistance and branding them terrorists. If the official position, unfortunately, is putting its faith in the Americans. We have never considered the Americans as sponsors of peace or peacemakers. Therefore, this relationship between the Palestinian Authority and the Americans should be severed. And as I said, in the context of what we should do as Palestinians, we need to look for new coalitions in the world, and these are possible. We need to form a new force with new allies that share the same standards and values and that defend the same causes. We shouldn't actually resort to allies that want to exploit the resources of the region and exploit the region as a whole. Because if, God forbids, the Palestinian resistance is undermined, then the Arab world and the regional actors will be in danger. They are now in danger because the wealth and resources of the region are being pillaged by the imperialist forces through different means, including the naturalization of relations with the occupation state. Therefore, I call upon all the free in the world to unite together. We must join forces. We must engage in coalitions that will feed into building the socialism that we believe in order to deter this international imperialism and its instruments. And mainly the main instrument in the region, which is the Israeli occupation state. Well, I will conclude by talking about Jerusalem, and we can say what we can concretely do in terms of supporting Palestine and Jerusalem in order to give Jerusalem its credit. Jerusalem cannot express what they are suffering from because of the oppression and because of these criminal policies against it. Since October 7 in Jerusalem, in Jerusalem, Al-Aqsa Mosque has been closed, and Palestinians were deprived from praying inside Al-Aqsa Mosque or even going towards Al-Aqsa Mosque. There is a complete ban of any empathy or support of the resistance. If you do this, even on social media, you will be fired from your work. This happened. This happened with students in the university. Female students were empathetic with Gaza. They supported Gaza through a Facebook post, and they have been expelled from the university. There is a newly graduate student who graduated from the law school, and she was deprived of her law or her attorney license because of a post she made in support of the resistance, and she was deprived of all the years that she spent in education because of posts so she shared in support of the resistance. There are also some workers who are working in factories owned by the Jews. They have been expelled under the pretense that that area are not secured, but they were fired because they were supportive of the resistance. Also, there are many other cases that showcase the atrocities committed by the occupation state against the people of Jerusalem. In Jerusalem, the streets are filled with the Israeli police to prevent any movement or protests inside of Jerusalem. Many other atrocities also happened inside of Jerusalem, but this is just a number of examples that I wanted to share with you. Our people in Jerusalem cannot express themselves. They cannot express even the smallest issues. On social media, if they post something or make a comment in glorification of the resistance or do a like on a post on resistance, they will be persecuted by the occupation state. The occupation forces exercises this in the past in an attempt to add the or make or transform Jerusalem into a Jewish city. The Judaization efforts have been relentless, especially and that have doubled since the 7th of October. Also, by the way, I would like to say that in the West Bank, we cannot go to Jerusalem and we cannot go to Gaza because of this occupation. When we go to Jerusalem or to Gaza, we need authorization that might be granted or denied by the occupation state. This is Palestine, comrades, and this is occupation, and this is the fragmentation that have been enshrined by the occupation state. The occupation forces are always is always performing these types of practices because they think that we will be fed up and leave. They think that what the Oslo Agreement gave them is their right. They think that they can put us to our knees, but this is a frivolous, futile attempt. The Palestinian people will stay. We are rooted in our land. Women are rooted in their land. They are the patient, resilient, resistant women. These are the women who fill the vacuum left by men in some positions. And like Comrade Mariam said, they are the partners in politics, in social work, in resistance, in the struggle. Women were, are, and will be always in that position. Thank you very much, and sorry for being long because I wanted to speak slowly for the interpretation. Allow me, please, to leave because I have another seminar. Thank you very much. Thank you for your support. Thank you. It's okay. Apologies. And we will see you in our homeland when it is freed. Thank you, Comrade Afef, for this intervention. In details, we've lived what is happening in the West Bank and in Jerusalem. You are the voice of the voiceless. You are the voice to the people whose candies to the girls and women whose candies was robbed, whose water was robbed by the occupation state. We will not falter. We will not leave. We will stay here. Either we live on this land and reclaim it, or we will die on it. Wahid, can you broadcast the recording of the comrade Wala from Gaza? Wahid. Yes. Thank you. Go ahead. Greetings, comrades, from the heart of Gaza. I speak to you from Gaza in the 49th day of the attacks against Gaza, which is a genocide against Gaza through massacres and through attacking the media and health services, and targeting all of the hospitals with their displaced and injured, and demolishing all of the humanitarian or human requirements. The occupation state is continuing its atrocities, targeting the different groups of the Palestinian people. Women were and are the most affected by these attacks. There are systematic attacks against the rights of women, including the right to life, the right to return, and the right to independence, and the right to self-determination. These are negatively reflect, or this these attacks negatively reflect on their lives. The attacks on the lives of Palestinian women and their rights have taken in other dimensions during the attacks against Gaza that has been under siege since 17 years. Women in Gaza are being subject to forced displacement and systematic genocide by the Zionist armed forces, by a clear and direct support from the imperialist forces headed by the US, and with a silence from the Arab retroactive government. In Gaza, we have lost all the main life needs. There is no water, no electricity, no food, no medicines in Gaza. 14,845 martyrs, including 6,450 child and 4,000 women have fallen since the beginning of the attack and until this day. And in addition to this, there are many women who have been injured, and due to the martyrdom of many men, women became the breadwinners of their families, and more than 1,500 women have become widows. These numbers can be increased at any minute because of the increase in the barbarian attacks against Gaza by the occupation forces. This exacerbates the situation and poverty of women in light of the lack job or the scarce job opportunities in the Gaza Strip. Also, the attacks added burdens to women because they need to respond to their basic needs, to their basic needs and the basic needs of their families, and this exacerbated our sufferings. And we needed to overcome these sufferances and overcome our wounds and pain in order to provide for our families. And we are creating things out of scratch, literally scratch. And we are, in addition to our anxiety and fear, required to provide food for our families. But in the light of the absence of the basic needs for food, we are providing small amounts of food that only prevent people to die from hunger. The assault have increased or exacerbated the deterioration of the situation in Gaza, malnutrition and deprivation of the basic needs have exacerbated. Many women have lost their children. They have been buried as body parts, and we have seen the agonies of children under the rubble or when they were subject to surgeries without any anesthesia. We have witnessed the sufferance of women that have been forcibly displaced from their houses in Gaza because their houses have been partially or completely demolished because of the continuous Zionist attack. The women have resorted to the UNRWA schools, camps, or tents or stadiums, and they are living in unhumanitarian conditions. These places lack main utilities like food and water and do not provide privacy for women because the women live with no less than 40% in one room that is a 4 square meters space. These women have been forced to displace and walk for 45 kilometers from the north to the south of Gaza within 9 hours. Many women have been also been forced to move out of the areas that they were displaced to into other new areas, and the volume of sufferance and helplessness of women is unprecedented. The women are suffering in their quest to preserve their lives and the lives of the members of their families. I don't know if you've seen Haga In'am, who has been forcibly displaced twice in 1948 and now in this war against Gaza Strip. In 1948, she was young and she lived firsthand the massacres committed by the occupation forces. And she has been witness also in her elderly, as an elderly, to the direct attacks of Ashifa area, Ashifa, sorry, hospital. The bombardment and airstrikes continue and hasn't stopped even for a few seconds. The fetuses in the wombs of their mothers have been also affected by the attacks of the Zionist forces. In light of the continuous bombardment of hospitals and the roads for accessing hospitals, this resulted to seeing 52,000 pregnant women who do not have access to basic neonatal services, and many of them lost their babies, and others have gave birth in their houses to the children, to their babies. Some of them survived, and others died. Some women have hemorrhaged during their delivery, and this resulted in the extraction of their wombs. And this was an agonizing process due to the fact that they haven't been subject to anesthesia and they have lost a lot of blood. 160 births every day have been delivered in insane, unhealthy, and unsafe conditions, in degrading circumstances, and in very difficult and dangerous circumstances. It is impossible to conduct a C-section on pregnant women because hospitals are overcrowded with the injured persons, and the anesthesia substances have been scarce, if not non-existent. I have seen a woman who has delivered her baby in front of the hospital under the headlights of her husband's car because they didn't have any fuel for the generators. Therefore, pregnant women have a double sufferance. Either they deliver without the necessary conditions, and this jeopardizes their lives, or make an abortion of their children as premature fetuses. Also, a huge number of women and girls have been compelled to uh, uh, eat pills that stop menstruals because they cannot access water, and they are continuously on the move, and they do not have even access to women diapers. The sufferance of women did not stop here. The electricity cuts have affected hospitals, and this resulted in catastrophic situations for women affected by chronic diseases or have tumors or who require daily health care. The series of atrocities that women in Gaza are suffering from, in addition to the forcible displacement and intentional targeting by the airstrikes and other violations that are committed against women and violations of her rights and freedoms that are enshrined and guaranteed by virtue of international law, all of this live up to crimes against humanity. These crimes against humanity deprive Gaza women from living securely and safely like other women all over the world enjoy. And thank you and salutes from the heart of resisting Gaza. Thank you very much. Thank you, Comrade Wala. Thank you for this living testimony from Gaza. Yes, you and all of us talk about international laws and the sufferance that is inflicted on women and children in spite of the fact that international laws protect women and children, including law on the protection of women and children during war times that have been adopted by the UN General Assembly. All of these laws have been thrown out of the window. The Israeli occupation forces are doing whatever they want in Gaza Strip. They are the people, and especially women in Gaza, are under siege from the land, air, and sea. Gaza is the manifestation of the true atrocities and genocide committed by imperialist forces. The people of the world have been in solidarity and have supported Palestine and Gaza in the different streets of the free world, regardless of the colluding governments. Now I give the floor to Comrade Pilar Fernandez from Ecuador to talk about the importance of international solidarity with women. She is a feminist, militant, and an anthropologist. Comrade Pilar, you have the floor.
Buenas noches.
Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me? I want to express gratitude to the comrades from the Arab region of the IPA and the Feminist Collective. This is an articulation of that is composed of more than 200 organizations throughout the world. And the purpose of the assembly is to continue to build and strengthen the solidarity between the working classes of the world. Solidarity are part of our values and principles, but it also constitutes as part of a concrete strategy of building a united international working class. And international solidarity has been a very important axis of struggle, as a feminist movement. And the women of the world have affirmed their belief in internationalism. This harks back to the communists in the First International, the Paris Commune. And then we can think of the Bolivarian Revolution, the Cuban Revolution. Women formed a crucial part of the construction of liberated territories. The audio is cutting in and out. In a note from the interpreter. Yes. As I was saying, after the Second World War in 1945, in the first International Congress of Women, the International Democratic Conference was created, and the Federation worked in the construction of an analysis of an anti-imperialist and decolonial analysis and practice, and this consolidates in the Conference of Asian Women that was celebrated in Beijing in 1949. And this summit saw the presence of socialist and communist women of many countries, from Lebanon to Korea, many women from Africa, including many women from Europe and the United States. In this conference, which is not very well known, it almost seems as if they've been trying to obscure it on purpose, developed a double proposal as to what anti-imperialist feminist praxis should be. And in that moment in the world, there, weren't just one or two decolonized countries. Many, a large part of Asia and the African continent were colonized as well. Women were always united in the struggle of resistance and anti-colonialism, have formed part of the armed struggle. And even for struggle in, countries that are colonized, but even in imperialist countries, many women and united in their efforts and protests of imperialism in general. And so this conference, which composed of women in what would now be known as the Global South, made a few fundamental calls. The first being the unity of all women in defense of their rights, forming part of all of all mass organizations of women to be present in all forms of struggle to preserve our rights, fight for our rights. And the second call was mostly directed to, to the colonizers, and also just to make a call that we do not, cannibalize internally as well. And we know that this this anti-colonial, anti-imperialist struggle does need to be internationalist. And we know that the Palestinians have resisted and continue to resist in Palestine. For us, it is our duty to fight colonization and support with our solidarity from all of the countries in the world. We know that capitalism oppresses the majority of people, and women are doubly oppressed, and as well as racialized people and gender variant people. And capitalism purpose is to reproduce capital, right? And not to reproduce life or to care for the planet. And in order to make those profits, capitalism needs class inequality and also gender and racial inequality. From the IPA, we understand that the links between capitalism and patriarchy are fundamental to the development of a system that invisibilizes life that sustains us. It invisibilizes the tasks that women undertake. We fight for a world that puts life and our common home, which is planet Earth, at the center, that acknowledges the complexities of humanity and acknowledges our interdependence in order to sustain life. And also to acknowledge, the fight around and make the necessary changes in the state. And imperialism uses resources that should be directed to scientific investigation and other resources, and they use that instead to produce bombs and guns to shed them, so people suffer. So every bloodshed should be redirected to the needs of the planet. And Israel is plays a key imperialist role in the Arab region to guarantee their interest in the region and control commercial petroleum routes in the region. As they destroy women, we form an essential part in the reproduction of life, caretaking different generations of people, caretaking for the sick, the disabled, the injured. And we care for the environment as well. We care for everything that capitalism and imperialism destroys. The comrades that spoke before me very well explained everything that the women are suffering through in Palestine and also how they resist. From our end, we have a general platform with 4 points in our campaign of solidarity with Palestine. It didn't start, but it has intensified, and it was a campaign that began some time ago. The first point is the immediate stop and ceasefire of all of the all that is happening in Gaza and end to the blockade in Gaza. The third is the return of all lands that belong to Palestine. And the fourth is to end the Israeli occupation of Palestine. And we think that to achieve these 4 goals, which we consider to be a dignified platform to express solidarity with the Palestinian struggle, it is important to keep the pressure and continue these mobilizations so that they can transition to long-term solidarity, to be directed to sustain organization for the Palestinian struggle. And we know that the political class and the elite of all throughout the world are not responding to the calls that the people have made to put an end to the Zionist occupation in Palestine. We have seen mass mobilizations where in all throughout the world. The people of the world are not supporting imperialist forces or Zionism. The people are with the men, women, and children of Palestine. As an international articulation, we do have some very important tasks that I would like to outline that we are beginning to undertake, will continue to undertake in order to continue this process of solidarity with Palestine. In each country, there's a variety of initiatives with the Palestinian cause, and we are trying to achieve more effective coordination at each country and regional level. We are making a call to participate and organize every type of actions that need to be taken to put an end to the occupation, you know, blocking arms shipments, protests and Israeli embassies in the US and other places, organization in the universities, strikes, marches, occupations of public buildings. On the other end, we are also demanding and putting pressure on governments to stop investing in corporations that support Zionism. We are demanding governments to break relations with Israel, and not just as the current genocide is taking place, but in terms of until the general occupation ends. And we continue to participate in the BDS campaign, which we know stands for boycott, divestment, and sanctions. We also believe that it is important to continue to wage what we call the battle of ideas. Because there are many things that the general public are unaware of, and this particular moment we should take advantage of in order to affirm our position. We, as the comrade very well mentioned, there's a silent war happening in the West Bank. There is a silent war in the West Bank that has become in Palestine for, at the very least, the past 75 years, and the people are opening their eyes to something that is brutal, right? But as we know, this is an older process that did not begin on October 7th, right? And the resistance has also taken place throughout these past 75 years. So we know that it is important to use all forms of communication associated with the IPA, including social media, to denounce the occupation, to uplift the Palestinian resistance, and to fight against generalized disinformation. We understand that the struggle against Zionism is also a struggle against capitalism, colonialism, white supremacy, imperialism, neo-fascism, the patriarchy, and the destruction of the environment. All of the ills of humanity coexist. The very corporations, entities that support Zionism and provide arms and funds are corporations that exploit workers, that do not respect the rights of women, that contaminate the environment and practice racism. Those neo-fascist politicians that are winning elections in Latin America are also in India, and they want to put an end to all of women's rights and all gender variant people in the name of religious fundamentalism. Those also receive support and financing from Zionists, and they ideologically support Zion. And this is where we connect these struggles against imperialism, and they express themselves in different ways based on different contexts, but it's all part of the same struggle. And especially when we're talking about Palestinian women, we need to understand that their testimonies are crucial, and we need to amplify their voices, right? The violation of rights, the impoverishment of people, which is very similar to the apartheid conditions in South Africa. And also, the Palestinian people have been dealing with the blockade in the same way that the Cuban people have been dealing with as well for decades. This is part of that silent war. We need to explain that the reproduction of life, the tasks that women undertake, become much more difficult under conditions of war, as our comrades from Gaza had shared with us. And at the end of this, there will be, this will end. This will not last much longer. There are many women that will be raising their children alone. And as crisis deepens, so will gender violence. And we know that this is something that always happens. And we understand that this is not just in Gaza, and this is happening in the West Bank and Jerusalem and anywhere where there is Palestinian population. We understand that people have dealt serious repression and have dealt with violent attacks. We need to explain the fact that Palestinian prisons, or apologies, the prisons where Palestinians are placed are places of torture. We also need to acknowledge and explain the fact that women are and continue to be fundamental to the resistance, and in the same way, they will be fundamental to the reconstruction that will take place after the fire. We know and support the Palestinian struggle. The land is theirs, it belongs to them, belongs to the Palestinian people. We understand that the Palestinian people do not want to abandon their land, and we acknowledge that this resistance is heroic. On our side, we understand that there is no internationalism without solidarity. We cannot say that we are waging anti-colonial, anti-capitalist, or anti-imperialist struggle without supporting the Palestinian struggle and without having a feminist focus that also takes into account race and that is looking for the wellness of our environment and the planet. We understand, comrades, please count on us for our solidarity. Y'all lead the march and we will march alongside you. And we are doing everything that we can from our trenches out here. And this resistance that has taken place in the last 75 years, keep resisting until the end of the occupation and until the Palestinian land is rightfully returned to the Palestinian people. Thank you, comrades, and long live Palestine, free Palestine.
Thank you. Thank you, Comrade Pilar, for this intervention. We always talk about the role of women. Women are strugglers, are the one who carry the cause, who fight, who help, who carry the firearms, and they have a lot of responsibility to share the truth, to teach the truth, and to share everything with the truth with everyone. This brings us to the end of today's meeting. There are some questions that were written on the chat, so I will quickly ask a few questions, but with this will take us to the end of this meeting on the role of women. This was a very informative meeting on the daily life of Palestinian women, how they continue the struggle, how they face colonization and aggression with strength, with resilience and courage. As to the questions, and I don't know if who wants to take the floor to answer, because there was a question about the position of the Palestinian Authority and another question on international organizations. What is our position from international organizations and the Palestinian Authority? Anyone, I don't know, Comrade Afaf, or anyone who wants to take the floor to answer? Comrade Pilar also, the floor is open. With regard to the Palestinian Authority, I believe that the official Palestinian position is clear in the media. It's one that does not, of course, meet what is needed or the event. We always hope, and we still hope, and try through the Liberation Organization to have a dialogue between all the components, the political components in Palestine, and to unify the position and to provide protection and to contain the Palestinian resistance. There are still efforts made in this regard. We are holding a meeting that brings together all the Palestinian components with no exception. We hope that this will take place soon. And even though I'm not really optimistic, but I hope, and we're working towards this. It's not just hopes, but we are trying. But I also want to say that the Palestinian people is unified. In the field, the people are unified. And in the struggle, the movements, the ideas, the beliefs, we all share the same beliefs, and we behave in a lot of responsibility, and we know that we have a unified objective, which is to end the occupation, and we need to keep it that way, and disregarding the political process at the end of the day, because there is a political process that has its proper position, but it's important that we act very responsibly to make sure that no disagreement or conflict, internal conflict would spread. We are together to fight colonialism. That is our only enemy. This is with regard to the Palestinian Authority. But with regard to international organizations, I think that many of you, most of you might agree with you that the positions of international organizations remain marked by double standards, because when war was, they had a completely different take on the war in Ukraine, but when it comes to Palestine, they have a completely different opinion. And when they talk about the colonizers and this colonization of Palestine, they have a completely different opinion. So that's what I want to say, is that these organizations, unfortunately, have failed us to their positions, and as Palestinian people, we see them clearly. They have no doubt about their positions. I've referred, and this is why when we protest there, and we send messages and protests, feminist voices from different backgrounds, and what is what you notice is that most organizations and through this network of these local organizations, many sent messages to some of the international organizations that were biased towards the colonial powers, especially at the start, and their governments also participate one way or another in this colonization and they support the colonization. Many organizations refused the funding. Many local organizations refused funding coming from international organizations that support Zionism, and they ended relations with them. Today, there was a feminist message to the UN, specifically to UN women, where our message was clear, where we criticized their position towards the Palestinian coast with Palestinian women, and why weren't you vocal and when talking about the genocide of Palestinian women? More than 4,000 female martyrs died in Gaza. Where are these organizations? Why aren't they talking about women rights? Children died, more than 6,000 children killed. So these organizations, just to give you an example, the agreement, for instance, of Agreement 1325, which says that, which talks about protection of women in conflict. Where are these organizations? Why aren't they implementing those articles and agreements? The conflict is in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Jerusalem, and women also to undertake all kinds of violence, but no one does anything. So the position of Palestinians is clear. All the different organizations in Palestine, it's a unified position towards these organizations. Thank you. Thank you very much, Comrade Hafaf. Thank you, Mariam. We know the Comrade had to leave, but we'd like to thank Comrade Filar. If you would like to add anything, the floor is yours. This brings us though to the end of this meeting. Comrade Filar, if you'd like to take the floor is open.
No. Yo solo quería, sí, decir que efectivamente hay un doble estándar muy serio en cuanto a los conflictos que están
with the not present. It seems that the only wars that matter are the wars between the white people, especially in view of the formal international authorities. Well, that was all. I agree with Afaf. It is up to the peoples to organize our struggle from the bottom up, so as to put an end to the occupation in Palestine and contribute to the liberation of the Palestine peoples. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you all. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for sharing this, all of this information. Freedom to Palestine with Palestinian will prevail for support of its women, children, and martyrs and fighters. Greetings to all and respect to all the martyrs. Thank you all very